Ontario's housing minister accused of breaking ethics rules.
The Premier has to answer for this, and there have to be consequences.
Tonight, demanding accountability in the growing Greenbelt scandal. Good evening. It is the latest chapter in a controversy plaguing the Doug Ford government.
The new revelations in an integrity commissioner's report prompting new calls for resignations and a reversal of the Greenbelt plan. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris joins us live with the latest. Siobhan.
Well, a senior government source close to the Premier tells CTV News behind the scenes it feels like things are spiraling. There is pressure on Doug Ford to ask his housing minister to resign, an attempt, they say, to stop the bleeding in the face of this damning report.
Not just flawed, but unethical. That's the finding of the Integrity Commissioner, looking at how lands were removed from the Greenbelt and the role of the housing minister in it. In his 166-page report, J. David Wake describes choosing the land being filled with misinterpretation and deception, a chaotic, almost reckless process that led to an uninformed and opaque decision, which resulted in the creation of an opportunity to further the private interests of some developers improperly. The process led by rookie Chief of Staff Ryan Amato. Through it all, the Integrity Commissioner believes Housing Minister Steve Clark stuck his head in the sand. The NDP leader feels at best
What we see here is gross incompetence, and that the minister was clearly unable to do his job. But at worst, it's corruption and it's colluding with developers.
Wake says Clark and Amato didn't have close relationships with developers, but the minister committed 3 errors. Misinterpreting suggested timing for Greenbelt removals, which led to a rushed process with unfortunate results. Withdrawing from supervision of a recently appointed chief of staff on a significant initiative, and taking the proposal to cabinet without questioning how properties had been selected. The recommendation is that Clark be reprimanded, a formal slap on the wrist. Not enough for the opposition.
The Premier needs to do his job and kick him out of cabinet.
The Premier acknowledges mistakes have been made, but isn't making a staffing change. In a statement, Doug Ford says Minister Clark will continue to work towards delivering on our promise to build at least 1.5 million homes and ensure public trust and confidence is maintained every step of the way. Steve Clark echoes the Premier's words, writing, "As Minister, the buck stops with me, and I accept the Integrity Commissioner's findings. There were clear flaws in the process that led to today's report." He, too, commits to moving forward with integrity.
I don't see how a Premier can read this Integrity Commissioner's report on the heels of the Auditor General's report and not demand accountability from his minister.
The Premier will face questions about that decision tomorrow morning.
Legislators have to deal with the Integrity Commissioner's report within 30 days of it being delivered. So that would land in the first week of MPPs being back at Queen's Park after their summer break on September 25th. Meantime, the government said late this afternoon it's in the process of returning 2 parcels of land that had been pulled from the Greenbelt back to it. Right now, there are fields of corn on the Ajax-Whitby divide. Recently, we heard from the government that those lands had been put up for sale. There are serious concerns, the government says, that this process will now allow shovels to actually be in the ground by 2025. That had been the promise attached to putting them pulling those lands from the Greenbelt. The for sale listing apparently had some inclusion that the area could be used for a business park instead of homes, and that wasn't part of the deal. Reporting live from Queen's Park, I'm Siobhan Morris. Raheem, back to you.
Thank you, Siobhan. And our coverage continues online. You can read more about the Integrity Commissioner report, the allegations involving the housing minister, as well as the latest developments in the Greenbelt scandal at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
Turning to the story that's become the buzz of Burlington and beyond, a truck that lost its load of bees this morning in the effort to return them to their hives. It was quite the scene on Guelph Line north of Dundas, and certainly not one emergency responders see every day.
Forced to face the question, just how do you wrangle 5 million bees? With the answer, here's CTV's Allison Hurst.
The truck with crates on the trailer and a number of other crates scattered around are remaining here, hoping to attract the rest of the bees back home. A swarm of activity on the side of the road as beekeepers try to coax bees back to their colonies.
I woke up to my wife saying there's something going on outside. There's all kinds of bees or something.
Dave Lloyd went to see, saying his phone was buzzing, that police were warning neighbors.
They called just to say, stay in, told them what was happening and stay in the house and keep your windows closed.
A number of them sought refuge on his mailbox.
It's crazy. Yeah, everybody's been texting us all morning. Is that in front of your house? Yeah.
Halton police say the load came loose and a number of crates fell off the trailer.
I believe the strap somehow came loose or loosened and the crates fell off of that.
Sending some 5 million bees buzzing into the air.
I've never seen, I don't think any of us, have ever seen anything like that.
So they called in experts.
Just got a call from Halton Police to come help out with bees that fell off a truck.
Local beekeepers from the surrounding area, like Luke Peters.
It's typically never good news when you get a call from the police, and I'm just glad, obviously no humans were hurt in this situation.
Peters says they did lose several thousand bees, but colonies can survive, adding that most are made up of 60 to 80,000 bees. Now they hope by leaving some crates, the bees will find their way home.
They communicate by smell, by sight, and all that. So they will start to communicate in those ways and figure out their way home. So hopefully sooner rather than later.
And buzz off to their next destination. Beekeepers say it could be a week or longer before they know the true loss. Reporting from Burlington, I'm Allison Hurst for CTV News.
An investigation is underway following a serious collision in Caledon. 2 vehicles collided in the area of Airport Road and Charleston Side Road shortly before 4:30 this afternoon. So far, police have not provided any details about the collision, only warning drivers to avoid the area as their investigation continues.
And take a look at this. This viewer video shows the scene after a car slammed into a storefront in Mississauga yesterday afternoon. The blue sedan came to a stop in the aisles of the dollar store near Dixie and Dundas. Police say the driver and 2 passengers in the vehicle suffered very minor injuries, and fortunately no bystanders were hurt. The cause is still under investigation.
Still to come tonight, tracking a powerful force of nature. Hurricane Idalia slams Florida. Tonight, the path of destruction left behind and where the storm is headed now.
But first, let's take a live look outside. Certainly a cooler day out there, but we are anticipating warmer weather heading our way. Lindsay Morrison is here with a look at the current conditions. I think a lot of people will be surprised if they step outside tonight.
Yes, and anybody who's venturing out this evening probably wants to consider a light jacket or a sweater, Michelle. We did not climb out of the teens today, and we'll talk temperatures in just a moment. This cloud cover taking a little longer to clear out than we were hoping for, but it's coming. The sun is shining in Muskoka, for example, where it is 15 degrees right now. It's 18 here locally in Toronto. We've had gusty winds today coming out of the northwest. That's contributed to the cool down. Right now, those winds are gusting upwards of 40 kilometers per hour. Here's your evening at a glance. If you're headed to the CNE, we are going to drop in some parts of Ontario into single digits overnight tonight. Coming up, I'm going to talk about who's under a frost advisory, but we'll also discuss that weekend warm up coming up. For now, though, Michelle, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Well, could it signal the end of a month-long labor dispute?
A tentative agreement has been reached between Metro and the union, representing thousands of striking workers. CTV's Beth McDonnell joins us live with the details. And Beth, from what we understand, it's now in the hands of the workers who will vote on the deal.
That's right, Raheem. The union representing workers says there is a meeting tomorrow afternoon. It says if a deal is approved, workers could be back on the job as early as tomorrow evening.
Solidarity!
They've been marching on picket lines for a month. 3,700 striking Metro grocery workers at 27 stores across the GTA, forcing customers to shop elsewhere.
I love Metro.
A staple for fresh food in the community shuttered.
It's really like frustration, you know?
But those pickets could be coming down soon as Metro and its employees have reached a tentative deal.
We're excited. We're skeptical at the same time.
Charlie Cavera is a meat manager in Scarborough. He says he can't afford anything in the store that's not on sale, while some of his striking colleagues have shared stories about relying on the food bank. Cavera hopes the new deal delivers on members' biggest priorities.
Money, benefits, and sick pay. We need these things. They're important.
At the end of July, a previous tentative deal fell through, rejected by members. Unifor, the union representing workers, said at the time, despite Metro putting together the best agreement in decades, it wasn't enough. Interest rates, inflation, and CEO profits all factoring in.
I'm hoping it's obviously going to be a better offer than before. Hopefully we're getting what we deserve.
On the new deal, Metro issued a release saying the agreement, which is fair and equitable for our employees and our customers, is unanimously recommended by the union's bargaining committee and will put an end to the labor dispute if ratified. It will be submitted to the employees for a ratification vote that will take place shortly.
It's time to share your profit.
Pressure has been mounting. Last week, striking workers set up outside distribution warehouses, stopping deliveries of fresh products province-wide. Metro was granted a temporary injunction to restrict the pickets. Customers speaking to CTV News are looking forward to shopping once again at Metro.
I know what it's like to go on strike. Nobody benefits.
I felt sad for them because in this time, it's hard and people have rent to pay and bills to pay.
They carry always the fresh fruits, so I'll have to get that.
Everyone appearing ready for a final resolution. The union says the tentative deal acknowledges the economic struggles many members are facing. It says if the deal is approved, it may take some time for stores to reopen. Shelves need to be restocked. Reporting live, I'm Beth McDonnell. Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Beth. A popular ride at the CNE remains closed after an incident saw a man sent to hospital. Emergency responders were called to the Polar Express ride Monday night. Paramedics say the man suffered serious but non-life-threatening injuries. The Canadian National Exhibition and the operator of the rides say safety is their top priority. Provincial safety inspectors are still looking into what took place.
A warning about the disturbing details in our next story. New developments a day after police laid 12 more charges of aiding and abetting suicide against a former Toronto area chef.
We're learning the federal government was warned years ago about one way family members say their loved ones discovered his alleged companies and were encouraged to buy the products. CTV's John Woodward has been digging into this story. And John, what have you found?
Michelle, it's a website. Unlike most suicide websites, which are geared to prevention, this one actually tells you how to die. Information grieving parents say should not be available. 22-year-old university student Tom Parfit found out about one way to die through a particular website CTV News isn't naming.
Vulnerable people like my son unfortunately fall under their spell and are provided with a relatively easy way to end their life.
That method, sodium nitrite, purchased, Parfit says, through a company run by former Fairmont Royal York Hotel chef Kenneth Law. Law now faces 14 charges of aiding and abetting suicide, one alleged victim just 16.
It's horrifying.
Parfit's not alone. A New York Times investigation identified 45 members of the site who killed themselves and said there may be more. In New Zealand, concerns about the site prompted its Internal Affairs Ministry to ban it, telling the site in a letter in May it promotes or encourages criminal acts. Years before, in 2019, a Toronto resident wrote MP Kirsty Duncan's office about the same site, saying, "I wish to draw the attention of the government to a public website which actively promotes meticulous instructions on a variety of methods to die by suicide. The most popular method they promote is to consume highly toxic sodium nitrite. The chemical has no import restrictions and it is widely available." The writer supports medical assistance in dying, but not without regulations to protect people with mental illnesses. When CTV News reached out to Duncan's office, staff didn't acknowledge the email exchange, instead pointing to the Liberal government's $156 million investment into Toronto's Centre for Addiction and Mental Health and a 988 suicide crisis helpline, saying, "We are committed to doing whatever it takes to support the mental health of Canadians and ensure all people, no matter where they live, have access to the mental health and substance use supports and resources they need."
It's the Wild West right now in Canada.
That's a problem, says NDP MP Peter Julian, because Canada doesn't have the tools to tackle internet content the way it does on TV or radio.
Other countries have taken action against these very harmful sites and the search engines and the social media platforms that promote them. And yet Canada has done absolutely nothing to crack down on these online harms.
Parfit is glad Law has been charged, but worried there are other sellers out there.
How can we now block access to this forum? How can we ensure that other Kenneth Laws, and I know they're there now, trading today, how can we ensure that they can't do that?
Worried that for a vulnerable young person, death is only a click away.
Now, we did reach out to the operators of this website. They got back to us saying they do not want to be part of what they called a biased story. And their readership is not small. That New York Times investigation pegged their hits at 6 million a month. Reporting live, I'm John Woodward. Raheem, back to you.
Thank you, John. 2 tractor trailers collided on Highway 401 in Clarington today, leaving a big mess for crews. It happened in the westbound lanes near Highway 115. One truck was carrying wood products and the other canned goods. One driver sustained minor injuries.
Peel police are asking for help in a hit-and-run investigation. On August 18th in Mississauga, they say a dark-colored sedan fled the scene of a crash with a 58-year-old man on Dundas Street, east of the Credit Woodlands. The victim was critically hurt and is still in hospital. Police are urging anyone with information, including vehicle repair centers, to get in touch.
We turn to the aftermath of a fire that ripped through a home in Mississauga this morning.
Fortunately, no injuries to report, but a couple is devastated. Their home is destroyed. CTV's Janice Golding reports.
From on high, you can see the last of the smoke. Firefighters quickly knocking down the flames that had billowed from a Mississauga bungalow.
It was burning like a fire. It's fully burning. In the morning, it was all flame was there inside in the house.
Amar Puri owns the home. He was in Niagara Falls on business when his wife called via video.
She has given me a FaceTime that time, and then she was just crying and saying that everything has gone.
John lives in the house next door.
You couldn't see anything because it was thick smoke.
He and his mother were awakened by pounding on their door.
Very scared because the wind was blowing, and when I running out, even I got the shower from the water, and I saw the flame is coming this way.
You were afraid your house was going to catch flame?
Yes.
The second alarm fire broke out around 6:45 a.m. Fire crews arriving to find fire through the roof of one semi-detached house, with flames making their way into the attic of the adjoining bungalow.
It's just an unfortunate situation. Hopefully we'll get through this soon.
Yu Chun owns the other half of the structure.
We'll sort it out, right? It's just more of a, I'm so glad nobody got hurt and people are safe, including our neighbors too.
No one was inside either unit when firefighters arrived, although 2 people were checked by paramedics for smoke inhalation.
It was quick. We put a lot of water on the fire very quickly. It's difficult in the attic. We hit it from the outside first. Once we got in, we were tearing all the ceilings down to get at it.
Despite firefighters' fast action, which prevented the blaze from spreading to other neighboring homes, Amar Puri says he, his wife and daughter have now lost everything.
Everything is gone from inside.
Very
sorry. Only these clothes, that's it.
Still, he says he's very grateful no one was injured.
It's a God grace. It's a blessing that everybody is safe.
Puri says he was in the midst of a kitchen renovation, which he and his family had planned since 2019. And now not only have they lost their dream kitchen, but absolutely everything else they own. Janice Golding, CTV News.
Bracing for the last lap at an Etobicoke attraction. Coming up, why the go-kart tracks are being removed at Centennial Park.
To a major story now south of the border, where Idalia has been downgraded to a tropical storm as it passes over Georgia.
Idalia came ashore in Florida today as a powerful hurricane, unleashing devastation along a stretch of the Gulf Coast. CTV's Heather Wright reports.
Idalia making landfall this morning as a Category 3 hurricane.
Oh my gosh. No!
Packing winds of up to 175 kilometers an hour and causing water levels in areas like Cedar Key to rise by more than 9 feet.
I slowly watched the water get closer and closer. By about 4, water was starting to come in the house. And about 4:30, about 75% of the house was covered.
Oh my goodness.
Idalia made landfall in Florida's Big Bend region, where the northern panhandle curves. The first time on record a major hurricane has hit the area.
My house is down at Keaton. I don't know if it's there or not. We've never seen this before. Category 1 has scared us, man. I mean, this right here is bad.
At least 30 counties in Florida were put on mandatory evacuation orders, with Idalia moving across the state more quickly than had been forecasted.
And some of these things will just dump water and they go, so slow. This one moved a little bit faster, which is, at least when you're talking about the flooding, is a little bit better than when they're slow.
Still, the storm has been linked to at least 2 deaths in Florida and has damaged a number of major bridges connecting some barrier islands to the mainland. Today, President Biden promised federal support for any state that needs it, while also saying more needs to be done to combat climate change.
I don't think anybody can deny the impact of the climate crisis anymore. Just look around. Historic floods, more intense droughts, extreme heat, significant wildfires have caused significant damage like we've never seen before, not only throughout the Hawaiian Islands in the United States, but in Canada and other parts of the world.
Flash flood warnings are now in place in Georgia as Idalia tracks north, with officials there urging people to stay home. As hurricane season kicks into high gear, forecasters warning this one could be more active than usual. Heather Wright, CTV News, Toronto.
In the BC interior, several major fires are still burning out of control tonight. Possible rain in the central Okanagan and Shuswap failed to materialize. Crews had hoped it would help dampen the flames, but there were stronger winds, which led to an expanded evacuation alert for the McDougall Creek wildfire. People whose homes were destroyed in and around West Kelowna are now being contacted to schedule bus visits to assess the damage. There are more than 400 blazes across the province. Over 30 have started within the past 36 hours.
In the Northwest Territories, the state of emergency has been extended until September 11th. That news comes amid frustration among evacuees who want to go home.
Reality is I want a timeline too. Some things we can control as government, but we can't control fire as to the limit. We have limits we can do. We can't control the wind and the temperature. So we've got high temperatures still in the north. What I'm telling people is as soon as it's safe to go home, as soon as the fire's in control, then it will take about 4 or 5 days at least.
Nearly 70% of the territory's population is seeking refuge in Alberta and beyond. The Premier says power must be restored, and airports, hospitals, grocery stores, and gas stations must all be functioning before residents can go home.
The Canadian military is making changes to its regimen for reporting abuse.
We consulted so far with more than 15,000 defense team members on the desired outcomes. This was followed by a series of initiatives and programs to support our people in their culture evolution, be it the leadership support teams and coaching, through the anti-racism toolkit and an overhaul of our complaint and grievance mechanisms.
The Armed Forces mandatory reporting policy is no more. Members will still be able to report misconduct, but they will no longer face possible penalties for failing to report something they experience or witness. The move is intended to give victims control over the reporting process.
Russia has launched its most intense airstrikes on Kyiv since the spring. 2 people were killed as debris from intercepted missiles fell in 4 locations in the capital. Ukraine says its air defenses shot down 28 cruise missiles and 15 of 16 Iranian-made drones fired overnight at Kyiv and multiple regions across the country. Explosions were also reported in the southern city of Odessa and the Cherkasy region.
And Ukraine launched one of its broadest strikes yet in a campaign to turn the tables on Moscow. Drones struck at least 6 regions deep within Russia today. Included was an airfield more than 600 kilometers from the border. 4 military transport planes were destroyed. Ukraine confirmed that without commenting on the nature of the incident. It is checking into whether others were damaged. Moscow says there was also an attempted drone attack on a TV tower.
In the U.S., Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell will consult with a doctor prior to his next public event. McConnell appeared to freeze up today while answering questions from reporters in Kentucky. He did not respond to others nearby before being escorted away. A spokesperson says the 81-year-old felt momentarily lightheaded and paused during his press conference.
The Prime Minister is preparing for a whirlwind trip to Asia next week. Justin Trudeau will visit Indonesia, Singapore, and India. He'll attend the G20 summit in New Delhi, a meeting of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations in Jakarta, and meet with heads of government and business leaders in Singapore. The PM is scheduled to spend 2 days in each country.
Meanwhile, a new poll suggests the Trudeau Liberals' popularity among a core group of supporters has dropped significantly. Data collected at the end of August by Nanos Research shows the Conservatives now leading the pack with more than 39% for younger voters. The NDP is in second place with nearly 31% for voters 18 to 29 years old. And the Liberals are a distant third with just under 16%.
That's a major swing. At the start of August, the Conservatives had over 29% support. so their popularity has received a boost. But the Liberals are down after having almost 27% support among young voters at the beginning of the month. Nick Nanos tells us what's driving voters.
What we're seeing is a focus on economic issues, meat and potato things, inflation, the rising cost of living, jobs in the economy. All those things are on the rise. However, the environment as an issue has been on the rise, as many Canadians have been having to deal with extreme weather events and also these wildfires that are across the country. So think of Canadians as cross-pressured, but more pocketbook issues being top of mind for Canadians as they're struggling to pay for the groceries and the rent.
Nick Nano says the latest tracking has Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives in minority government territory. He will be paying particular attention to Ontario, where the Tories have been much more competitive.
The Toronto Maple Leafs have iced any doubt they may not believe in their head coach.
The team announcing today they're keeping Keefe for a few more years. The Toronto Maple Leafs are planning to keep a familiar face behind the bench for the foreseeable future. Sheldon Keefe has signed a 2-year extension with the club.
He's demanding and he expects a lot. He pushes these guys, but there's a real trust factor.
The team had already confirmed that Keefe would return earlier this summer, but the new deal provides stability for the 42-year-old who is entering the final year of his contract.
Give him some peace of mind and again, get everything focused where it needs to be, which is the start of camp and getting our team up and going.
In 2019, Keefe was named head coach of the Maple Leafs, promoted to the role from the AHL's Toronto Marlies under then general manager Kyle Dubas. He's guided the team to the playoffs in each of his 4 seasons, including this past year, lifting the Leafs to their first postseason series win in 19 years, before falling to the Florida Panthers in the next round. Outside Scotiabank Arena, Leafs fans appear somewhat unfazed with the signing.
It wouldn't hurt to bring in a new face either, but I think I'm not necessarily mad about it. I don't think he's done bad things.
There's room for improvement, obviously.
I hope he can bring us a cup this year. That's all we need.
Holding on to hope that Keefe can help turn this roster of Leafs players into legends. And fans will get their first look at the Maple Leafs in less than a month when they play their first preseason game on September 24th in Ottawa.
The Toronto Zoo says its staff are grieving the loss of a tiger at a Colorado zoo who was born and raised in their care. Mila was a 2-year-old female Amur tiger, considered a critically endangered species. She was born in 2021 at the Toronto Zoo and then transferred to a Colorado zoo earlier in the year. Cheyenne Mountain Zoo says Mila died on Friday from a spinal injury after slipping off a bench during surgery. The Toronto Zoo has established a new memorial fund in Mila's name and will create a memory board for her at the tiger habitat.
It is the final summer for a popular attraction in Etobicoke.
The go-kart track and batting cages in Centennial Park are in a battle with the city to maintain their setup in the sprawling green space, but have been told their time on the property is up. CTV's Natalie Johnson reports.
It is coming up on the final lap at this Etobicoke go-kart track and the bottom of the 9th at this neighboring batting cage.
I don't think they should take it down.
It's kind of sad, actually.
35 years after it was off to the races here in Centennial Park, the company that runs these attractions has been told by the city it needs to be out by the end of November.
We've done an awful lot, to make this work, and it's definitely one of the busiest operations I've ever seen as far as go-kart tracks go, and I think it's, bittersweet.
It's all part of a $20 million plan to revitalize this park, the second biggest in the city. Approved by council in 2021, the master plan includes a new cricket pitch, a skate park, a skating trail, naturalized areas, and more, but does not include the go-karts or batting cages.
We hear how important it is to everyone all the time. People that used to come here now bring their kids here, and I want to be here for them.
A balance has been struck between all the different interests,
and it's going to mean something great for the citizens of this city.
The Centennial Park property is owned by the province and leased to the city, which subleases to the go-karts and the batting cages. That agreement expired in 2020.
How you doing, guys?
The president of the Mini Indy is determined to change the city's mind, with 25,000 signatures and counting.
Those 25,000 people were not consulted, and I've talked to a great many of them here, and nobody knew anything about what was going on with Centennial Park, and they're very, very much on our side that it should remain here.
The city calls the consultations extensive and points to the fact that the Mini Indy's lease is up.
There's a lot of questions about what the best use for every square inch of land that we have in the city, and in particular, a place like a park. I'm all for the revamp, and I'm all for bringing more people in here. I just don't think you got to get rid of one of the main reasons people are already here.
But the rubbers hit the road, and they're now in a race against time to win over the city. Natalie Johnson, CTV News.
Coming up, it's one way to paint the town red. Thousands take to the streets in Spain to hurl tomatoes at each other. The ultimate food fight, La Tomatina, just ahead.
And I'm Pat Foran. Coming up on Consumer Alert, many of us now bank online, but if you do, you have to make sure you're on the correct website. A Hamilton woman Googled her bank, but was taken to a fake website where hackers stole $3,000. I'll have my reports just ahead.
Well, we've got a bit of a chilly night ahead. The overnight low tonight in Algonquin could be close to freezing. It's one of the communities currently under a frost advisory. Cover up any potted plants in these areas. Combination of clear skies, calm winds, but you know what? It's also going to make for some good viewing conditions to enjoy the super blue moon. We're going to talk a little bit more about this coming up in the newscast. Also, a big warm up this weekend. Those details are ahead. And stay with us. We've got another full night of great shows for you right here on CTV.
Many of us now do online banking and log into our accounts each day without any problems.
But if you ever look up your bank using a search engine, you need to make sure you're in the right place. Pat Foran's here with Consumer Alert. Pat.
Thanks, Raheem and Michelle. A Hamilton woman wanted to log into her bank while she was at work. She Googled the bank and a website popped up. It looked like the real thing, but it turned out to be a fake website, and she was scammed out of $3,000.
This website looked identical to the Bank of Montreal, identical.
Bruna Capretta of Hamilton was at work on a lunch break when she decided to use a company computer to do some online banking.
I opened up Google, I typed in Bank of Montreal, I clicked on the link that said bmo.com. It took me right in. I was in the bmo.com website, or what I thought was the bmo.com website.
Capretta has her account set up to receive a one-time passcode when she signs in. The code was emailed to her, she entered it, and hackers immediately took over.
As soon as I entered that passcode, I literally just blinked and $3,000 was gone from my account.
Scammers used an e-transfer to send themselves $3,000. The website was fake, made to look exactly like her bank's.
As soon as what happened, that website was gone. It was like taken down immediately.
After an investigation, Capretta was denied reimbursement. BMO told CTV News it is the customer's responsibility to protect their account information at all times.
Browser redirects are more common than people think.
Cybersecurity experts say criminals are creating fake banking websites to steal your identity and your money.
You think you're going to the actual site because it's an exact replica or copy, but in actuality, that site is actually controlled by hackers.
To avoid bank scams, don't do banking on public computers. Always use antivirus protection. Make sure the URL address is correct and that it contains a padlock symbol. And use banking apps which are more secure. Capretta feels banks need to do more to protect their customers from scams.
There needs to be better security because the criminals are getting smarter, so the banks have to get smarter.
And online banking is generally safe as long as you're on the right website. But now many experts are giving apps the edge for security. They're updated by banks with security patches to keep hackers out. On your side, I'm Pat Foran.
If you have a consumer story idea, email us at alert@ctv.ca.
Well, we see that shot of the water behind us. It might be a little cool to be on the water today, but I'm sure there's a lot of boats still making the end of the summer right now.
I'm sure people who love it are out there. I would hate it out there. You probably would too, because it's a chilly day. You felt it today, even with the high. And tonight, I mean, we're almost in single digits.
I know. And, I was really hoping the cloud would have been gone by now, and at least we would be enjoying some sunshine. The clearing will still happen, but just in time for us to, as a result, experience some pretty chilly temperatures overnight tonight. Here's the thing, though. It looks as though in the long range, we are in for our hottest stretch of summer weather this entire season. Weather is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train. We're going to begin by giving you a current radar look at what's left of Idalia. Now a tropical storm, of course, as we mentioned earlier in the newscast, it made landfall today in Florida as a Category 3 storm. When it comes to these categories, Category 3 is a major hurricane. At one point, Idalia was a Category 4 just shortly before landfall. Fortunately, it weakened somewhat. We're now starting to see some of the biggest impacts across Georgia, portions of the Carolinas getting absolutely soaked right now, but it is losing its punch, which is great news. As this storm continues to track eastward, notice how it veers out into the Atlantic Ocean and really not going to impact us here in the lower Great Lakes. And one of the reasons for that, high pressure. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. There's one more look at Franklin. We'll be saying goodbye to this Category 2 storm shortly. Just moving to the north of Bermuda now and not expected to have a big impact on Atlantic Canada. It is contributing some moisture to some of these flooding rains that parts of the east are getting. For us, we had a cold front move through. Of course, we felt that earlier today and we'll feel it tonight, but the cloud cover will eventually dissipate. High pressure moves in for tomorrow, and it's really going to be a sunny couple of days. Believe it or not, this is a forecast radar movie. Not much in the way of cloud cover, certainly not much in the way of active weather over the next couple of days. Temperature-wise right now, it's only 16 degrees in Toronto. We are below normal. Waking up tomorrow morning, temperature could be around 10. Some communities will be slipping into single-digit territory. Nice rebound in the afternoon, though. We're forecasting a daytime high of 22. That is still a little below seasonal, but it's comfortable. 25 degrees seasonal and sunny for Friday as we welcome September. Then things heat up over the weekend. 28 degrees, maybe a bit of cloud on Saturday, slightest chance of a shower, and then it's sunny the rest of the long weekend, but look at these highs into the 30s with humidex values close to 40. That's your look at the weather for now. Michelle, over to you.
In Spain, about 15,000 people pelted each other with overripe tomatoes today. 120 tons were trucked into the main street of a town called Buñol for participants to throw at each other. This is what happens every year during La Tomatina Festival. It was inspired by a food fight in 1945 between children in the tomato-producing region. It could be a bucket list item for some. Others call it a colossal waste of food.
Also tonight, as Canada logs its first new case of the heavily mutated COVID-19 variant, we check in with local health experts on their expectations for the spread of the virus in the colder months ahead.
It's been several months now since the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 no longer qualifies as a global emergency.
But Toronto public health officials say the virus still remains a threat as they brace for case counts to rise in the colder months. COVID-19 cases have been on the rise in Canada, the U.S., and parts of Europe in recent weeks. Health Canada is reviewing updated vaccine formulas from Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna. They'll target more recent variants of the virus. Health officials say getting your COVID booster and your flu shot will be crucial in preventing hospitalizations. But Toronto Public Health says there are also helpful precautions to take as we head into respiratory virus season.
If we have symptoms, let's stay home. Let's not further infect others. Let's wash our hands often, cover into our sleeve, for example, and let's protect those who are most vulnerable from getting sick as well.
This comes as BC reports Canada's first case of a highly mutated strain of the virus. Health officials say so far, Omicron BA.286 isn't associated more severe infections, but it's too early to say how it could impact Canada's COVID-19 trajectory.
Instead of a pill or a cream, someday soon you might get a prescription for a visit to the museum. This is part of a cross-country initiative run by BC Parks aimed at helping Canadians experience the health benefits of interacting with nature. The Nature Prescription Program already lets doctors write prescriptions for patients to access national parks. Now physicians can also write a prescription for the Canadian Museum of Nature in Ottawa. It's listed as the first museum to join, suggesting others may someday do the same.
Mirvish Productions is out with a first look at the Canadian production of a Tony Award-winning musical hitting Toronto next month.
Tonight, we are...
Six the Musical tells the story of King Henry VIII's 6 wives and their fates. The production is in Edmonton right now, but it makes its way to the city and the Royal Alexandra Theatre from September 23rd through December 17th.
There was a big surprise for Drake fans at his concert in Vancouver last night. That is fellow rapper Travis Scott joining Drake to perform their song Meltdown live at Rogers Arena. Drake's concert there Monday was moved to today in a last-minute postponement. Travis Scott, meantime, announced a tour across North America, which will end at Scotiabank Arena December 29th.
And while she continues her record-setting Eras tour, Taylor Swift can celebrate another major achievement. Spotify says that as of Tuesday, Swift became the first female artist in the streaming service's history to reach 100 million monthly listeners. This comes ahead of Swift's latest re-recorded album release set for October, 1989, Taylor's version.
Stars Tonight is brought to you by Lastman's Bad Boy. Who's better? Nobody.
On the next CP24 Breakfast, a makeover that makes the grade. Get budget-friendly design ideas to create the perfect study space just in time for the school year. That's on the next CP24 Breakfast, up first at 5:30.
There's no way you can read this report and think that this was conducted in a proper way. Obviously not. The process was not fair. It was corrupt.
Updating our top stories, the province's Integrity Commissioner says Housing Minister Steve Clark broke ethics rules as part of the Ford government's Greenbelt development plan. In a statement, Clark acknowledged the report, saying the process was flawed, but says he remains committed to Ontario's affordable housing plan. The opposition is calling for Clark's resignation.
We're excited. We're skeptical at the same time.
Metro has reached a tentative agreement with the union representing striking workers at 27 stores across the GTA. If employees agree to the deal, it would end a strike, which has been ongoing since July 29th.
The crates came off of the trailer and opened up, and about 5 million bees were set free in the area of that intersection.
Burlington was a hive of activity this morning after millions of bees were set free after crates slid off the back of a truck on Guelph Line north of Dundas. Local beekeepers assisted police in capturing the majority of the bees. No injuries were reported, but one of the first beekeepers to respond was stung several times.
Remember to keep up to date day and night through our website, ctvnewstoronto.ca.
On the markets, the Canadian dollar fell 18 points to 73.58 US. American benchmark oil traded higher by 47 cents to 81.63 a barrel. And the TSX Composite Index gained 39 points to close out at 20,320.
With their playoff hopes slipping away, the Blue Jays were looking for a much-needed win at Rogers Centre this afternoon.
And Kirk lines this ball to left center field, and this one is getting to the fence.
Alejandro Kirk led the way with 3 hits and 3 RBIs as Toronto hosted the Nationals. The Jays went on to blank Washington 7-0 in the rubber match of their series. Right now, Toronto is 3 games out of a wild card spot. They kick off a 3-game set in Colorado on Friday.
Toronto FC will try to win its first game since May tonight when the Reds take on the Philadelphia Union. TFC is coming off a 2-0 loss to Columbus on Saturday. Toronto's winless streak now stands at 13 matches. Tonight's game gets underway at BMO Field at 7:30.
Just ahead, the second full moon of the month set up to light up the night sky. We've got a peek at the spectacular sight, prompting people around the world to look up.
Tonight, what to do about a statue.
He had a role to play in the Red River Rebellion with putting down the Métis.
Montreal decides not to replace a controversial monument to Canada's first prime minister. That's later on CTV National News.
Weather permitting, stargazers in the GTA could be in for a special treat this evening.
A blue moon is set to light up the night sky. Look at this. People around the world are enjoying the rare phenomenon. It's the second full moon of the month. That's why they call it a blue moon. And at just over 350,000 kilometers away, the closest full moon of the year. So they call it a supermoon. So it appears brighter and larger. For best viewing here, try to get away from city lights. There hasn't been a combination of blue and a supermoon in 27 years, and it won't be seen again for another 92 until the year 2115. It's even weird to say.
It's going to be something a lot of people, I'm sure, are looking forward to, though.
Yeah, we just need to get rid of this cloud. But if you travel, again, away from the city, you'll be able to see clearer skies a little bit better and away from light pollution, which is good, too. Here's one more look at the satellite and radar. If you don't enjoy the moon tonight, you can still enjoy it over the next couple of nights, which is good news. It'll just be at its fullest tonight. 10 is our forecast overnight low. There's one more look at the frost advisory that's in place for Huntsville and Algonquin Park. Hey, the air show's coming up. Here's a look at your weekend forecast. It's going to be a hot one, my goodness. In fact, this could be our hottest multi-day stretch of 30-degree weather we've had all summer. Michelle and Raheem.
Thank you, Lindsay. Well, that's it for us, but be sure to join Vashi Kapelos tonight at 11 for CTV National News, followed by Zoraida Allman with our next local newscast at 11:30.
In the meantime, our coverage continues anytime on CP24 and online at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and all of us here at CTV News, thank you for watching and have a great night.